Greetings everyone and welcome to, well, what's going to be a bit of an update on my collabs with Lady Shelab. Say hello, Lady Shelab.
Hi.
Right, so we're going to be covering both Thea, The Awakening, our multiplayer series, and also Divinity Original Sin 2. Both games have basically been missing from our channels for the last couple of weeks, so this will cover why that is and also what you can expect in the future. So let's start with Thea, shall we?
Yep.
Okay, now with Thea, honestly, there's very little good news here. I mean, there's kind of is, but in a nutshell, Thea, the multiplayer series, is going to be ending on our channels. We have recorded one stream that hasn't yet gone up, and it probably won't. The reasons are many. Now, particularly, I would like to stress that this isn't because Thea multiplayer isn't a good game. It's a really good game. The single player especially. Yeah, the single player is amazing. The multiplayer is amazing, but the multiplayer just doesn't really lend itself to recording for YouTube. Even with streaming, it's a bit of a push sometimes, and this pretty much all comes down to one thing, and that is that when something is happening with one person, when one player is doing an encounter, is resolving it, or is having a battle, the other player can't see anything. I mean, Lady Shelab, you've specifically gone through periods where it's been like 20 minutes before you could do anything.
Yeah, no, so remember that was that episode where I started a quest, I think it was, and I had to read the whole thing out.
Oh yeah, the Divinity quest. Yeah, that was literally
20
minutes.
Oh.
15, 20 minutes. And there was nothing there. I mean, I went to the effort of getting that episode off Lady Shelab so I could kind of superimpose video in video so that people had something to look at, because for the entirety of the time that Lady Shelab was reading, there was nothing for me to do. Even in the sort of arena of a stream, that was kind of boring for the people who were watching on my stream.
It makes you feel bad to have like exciting things happening, 1 or 2 or 3 things in a row. Especially.
Yeah, and it's nothing that you can really budget for, because a lot of it is down to chance. You could simply be attacked on the enemy turn. You could have to make an attack on your turn. And if one person is doing a lot of that in quick succession, then the other player is literally not going to be doing anything. And the problem is even more compounded if the other player, for their turns, is just waiting for something to happen. It might only be 3 turns away, but if the other person is having like 3 battles a turn for those 3 turns, then
if you're
goodbye.
Waiting to harvest resources, just sitting on a tile, that's going to
then goodbye for 30 minutes. And this is not something that's ever going to get better. It's something that we struggled with initially. When we first started releasing the series, we would go to quite a lot of effort to cut out the wait time. Oh my lord, do you remember how much time that took us to edit?
So much time to edit that, yeah.
It wasn't even normal editing. It was that we had to synchronize and like agree, right, where are we going to end this episode? On what turn will this episode end? Because for each person, the episode would be a different length. Because, for example, in terms where I had done a lot of fighting, your episode length is like 15 minutes, but mine was 30 minutes because I had all the content, and vice versa.
Weird length episodes. It's not great.
And that, I mean, it worked, and there were people who would thank us for going to the effort, but there were also people who were saddened, not frustrated, but just saddened that they couldn't use like multi-streaming or multi-view sync videos where they would watch both videos side by side so they could see everything happening. So we tried out just doing it without the editing, and it's difficult from a content creator's.
You don't want to put up stuff where you're literally looking at a blank screen with nothing moving for like 10 minutes. Yeah,
as content creators, that it kind of butts up against, well, I know some people like this, but this doesn't feel like content of a high enough quality for me to want to put out on my channel.
Exactly.
Now, again, I really want to stress that this is not because Thea is a bad game. Indeed, I actually rate Thea as one of my favorite games, and that includes the multiplayer experience. But the caveat is, if you're recording it, then there are very different requirements for the series that it needs to be able to perform well as a recording on both players' screens, not just on one. If you were just playing this with your friends, I think the multiplayer expansion is amazing. I mean, it's got its problems here and there, but what game doesn't? And ultimately, this was a free expansion. The game was never meant to have multiplayer. And you do feel that. It's basically multiplayer bolted onto the single player experience.
They caved a little bit to popular demand for that, didn't they?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, well, this is the thing, is right when this first came out, I came back to the devs with feedback saying that I thought it would really, really help it for content creators if you could see what the other person was doing, even if you couldn't interact with that. If you could just click a button and just watch their screen or watch the fight that was going on. And they unfortunately came back to me. There were a couple of other things I pointed out, like being able to just unend your turn. This came about because I came back with feedback straight away before this was even publicly released, and they put that in so fast. It was really, really great. But they did confess that to add in the sort of being able to see what the other person was doing would more or less require them to rewrite the engine. And at that point, I mean,
can't expect them to do that.
No,
really.
I mean, Thea, effectively, they put out all of their DLC for free. So all of this, the Giants expansion, this, the multiplayer DLC, that was all freely available. At this point, I'm sure they're looking at their next game because they need to make money, and maybe even Thea 2. And if they do make Thea 2, they might remake the engine for that. But asking them to rebuild the whole game just to support a feature in their free DLC, it's unreasonable. So I completely understand why they didn't do that, or why they couldn't. But it does mean that the game isn't really suitable for continuation as the series, because again, we're quite far. We're about halfway through, maybe a little bit more than halfway, and that's kind of compounded. There was one other thing that added to that, is that the game hasn't really been balanced for multiplayer.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah. I mean, we're basically sharing the output of quests, the rewards, so sometimes some of us get really powerful, but the other one is lacking in those quest rewards, because there's only one quest, and it doesn't give the reward to both parties. And also, whereas normally you'd have multiple people out going and all getting the XP from all these fights, we're splitting that down the middle because there's twice as many of us trying to fight. And so as a result, our parties aren't gaining strength with the same sort of speed. So it drags the game out a little bit more. Again, in just a social, playing it for yourselves, that would be fine. But playing it for the series, it does start
getting this weird situation with it as well, where you're like one step forward, one step backwards. You're sort of constantly trying to struggle for progress.
Well, that I think comes into the fact that our characters are not gaining strength as fast as they would otherwise, because they'll hit challenges and then you'll get a party wipe, and it's like, wow, the last 4 to 10 episodes worth of progress is just gone. I can recover from this. And in my single player games, I actually like that when something bad happens and I lose my best warriors and I have to struggle back from it. But in my single player games, when I'm playing for myself, I'm just clicking enter and enter and enter and enter to farm resources or get better gear. That's not something you can easily do
interacting with the fact that you've got already much longer turns and unevenly length turns doesn't help.
No. I mean, it would work in a single player series, and in fact, if you're really interested in seeing that, I would love to hear from you in the comments down below if you'd like me to perhaps revisit this as a single-player series. I did cover it as a first taste a long time ago, and yeah, I'd be quite happy to play this, just a single-player campaign. Oh yeah, I've streamed and I've done a first taste. I've gone through an entire stream series. Again, I really like this game, so please understand that we're not stopping it because we don't think the game is good. It's because the game doesn't, as multiplayer, just doesn't suit putting up on YouTube. But with all that said and done, so in summary, we're not going to be continuing Thea. Let's move on to Divinity.
Okay. With Divinity, it's not such bad news, is it?
No, it's pretty much just largely good or boring news, actually.
Boring news. Yeah. So basically with Divinity, it is just on hiatus. So yeah, we are going to continue. At the moment, there is only up to Act 1, the end of Act 1 available, I believe. So we are going to play it as basically as far as we can with it.
Yeah, and don't worry for those who have access to the early access version. I know there has been a recent patch that has made old save games incompatible, but as you can see, ours is still fine because the devs understood that there were a lot of content creators who were playing through the early access portion of the game prior to the patch coming out, so you can actually launch the old version still.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness, because that would have been very bad news.
Bye your save. Oh, but we were halfway through doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically, while Aavak is house hunting at the moment, I
Yeah.
believe. And also with my schedule, including having to do all my videos while working, it makes it very, very difficult to get our schedules to align.
We don't really have the same sort of schedule flexibility as you'd usually get with content creators. Normally, I'm very flexible and I can work around when Lady Sheilab is in work, so just when she has free time. But unfortunately, when she has free time is usually the same time when I can go and view properties. So the house hunting is really getting in the way there. But hopefully that won't be too long before I find a place. Maybe, possibly, fingers crossed. But yeah, so I'm kind of throwing a spanner in the works there. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Hopefully you'll find something soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically all there is to say about Divinity, is that we're loving the game at the moment. We're really enjoying playing the game together. We will get more episodes up, but it just might be a few weeks until Aavak can get things sorted and we can get our schedules back into alignment a bit again.
I mean, if by luck there is a period of time where we've got a couple of hours spare and we can record, then we will.
Yeah.
But understand that if, like, you know, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, whenever a couple of episodes go live, understand that that isn't indicative that we're going to finish off the playthrough, at least up to Act 1, in just one long go. It may just be an episode here or there or that sort of thing.
So we'll do what we can when we can.
Yeah,
Try
pretty
our
much.
best.
But the main thing to take away from this is that we are still playing it. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's simply on a back burner while our schedules are a little bit harder to synchronize.
Yes. We don't want to leave Blue behind.
No, we don't.
We like Blue.
I mean, yeah, I suppose she hasn't really done anything bad to me yet. I mean, I think she's maybe burnt my leaves
Shut your mouth,
now and
slave.
then. Oh, that's... See, this is...
See, this
so
is why
mean.
Aavak doesn't want to play anymore. See?
So mean,
See?
yeah.
See?
Maybe she'll have always mocking me. But yeah, so...
Yeah.
In summary, Divinity isn't going anywhere. It's just on the back burner. But Thea, that is the end. We're not going to be uploading any more content from that. But do let us know in the comments if you would like to see me, or in fact, Lady Shia for that matter, playing the game in single player. It's a much more... we have much more control over it in single player, and I happen to think it makes for a very good series. But obviously, interest, willing. But is that it? I think
That's everything, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for stopping by to listen to us rambling through this update, and I hope that's answered any questions that you may have had on where Thea was or where Divinity was. Divinity will be coming back. Thea unfortunately won't, or at least not in the form of a multiplayer series. So,
Yep.
until next time,
Keep being awesome.
take care, everyone.